Good evening. Welcome to the new Bedford Whaling Museum. I'm Annalisa Conway. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer here at the Whaling Museum, and we are really delighted to welcome you to this event tonight. Before we get started, how many of you are members? Just a show of hands. Thank you so much for your membership and for being here. And how many of you this is your first time here? Nobody. Okay, great. Oh, stop. I know it's not your first time here. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of tonight's event. Just a few housekeeping things before we get into the real fun. If you have a phone with you, please make sure it's on silent and take a look around and check on the emergency exits and so you know where they are. So tonight we are stepping in to one of the most interesting and unique stories of the 21st century. I'm a huge fan of this myself and thrilled that we have the folks who made the secret mall apartment possible. We are going to have Dante Bellini and we have Michael here who are going to have a panel discussion along with producer and director Jeremy, who will be here just in time at the end of the screening. But in the meantime, I'm going to invite our moderator, Dante Bellini, who is Emmy, Telly, and Hatch Award-winning director and producer, to give a brief introduction, and he will eventually, at the end, guide the discussion on the apartment, the creative process, and the legacy of this audacious and not award-winning yet, but record-breaking project. And your questions will be welcome. So please join me in welcoming Dante Bellini, Jr.
Hi, everyone. It is award-winning. It's won a whole bunch of awards. It's not right. Thank you all for coming. So Michael Townsend is here, and he is the mastermind behind this, criminal that he is. And Jeremy Workman will be here. He is the director of what is arguably one of the finest documentaries that I've ever been associated with, and based on how well it's done, I think a lot of people agree with that. Jeremy and I are producing a new film called School for Defectors, and he had a meeting that he could not miss at 2 o'clock on the Upper East Side of New York, and he got in a car and he's coming here, and hopefully we'll be here by 7:30. But we'll hope for that. Right after the showing of the film, we'll do a little Q&A, and we'll also talk a little bit about how this came to be, which is a fascinating story in and of itself. Lastly, and I was going to tell this later, but we probably won't have the time. In 2004, I had an ad agency and a PR firm in Boston and in Providence, and I represented the Providence Place Mall as the spokesperson for the company that owned it. And for 3 years, these guys were living in the mall, and everyone thinks that I knew about it. Nobody knew about it. The day that I found out about it was the day that he got arrested. And the next day, I was in over 300 press hits around the world wanting to know how I didn't know. And it's funny how life is, because fast forward a whole bunch of years, I become a producer on this film. So we hope that you enjoy it. It is a secret mall apartment, and we're so happy to present it to you tonight. Thanks. What'd you think? I'd like to bring down Jeremy Workman and Michael Townsend.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
So we'll be happy to entertain some questions, but before we do that, I think it's important to understand how this happened, because it was completely serendipitous. It should never have happened. So the movie should never have happened. So I'm going to let Jeremy and Michael explain what happened in 2018 or 19? 2019. It's quite incredible. And even to me, I've been around this for a while now, when I hear it, I can't believe it.
Nice. Should we take these nice seats here? Oh, Michael stands. You see, he stands the whole time. So just go with it. He's eccentric. So, I was in Athens, Greece in 2019. I was there to film another documentary that I made called Lily Topples the World, which is a documentary on the world's greatest domino toppler. And Lily is awesome. She lives in Massachusetts, and she's grew up in New Hampshire, and she does,
It's an awesome movie.
Yeah. You can find it on HBO Max. And I was out there filming it. She was doing a collaboration with the creator of the Rubik's Cube, Erno Rubik. And I was in this, I guess it was mostly almost like a glass building.
Yeah, it was on top of an opera house. It's one of their big cultural centers that they built, one of the most famous architectural buildings in Greece, in Athens in the last decade. And on top of this opera house is a glass structure. And my job was to go and do a tape art drawing with over 1,000 people on this building. So I was drawing on the exterior of the building, and it's glass, so I'm looking in, and I see a YouTube superstar. This is one of the few people I can recognize by face from YouTube. It's like, that's Lily. She's incredible. And who is that guy following her around? And that guy is Jeremy. So I got to see Jeremy at work with a subject, camera in hand, following her around, and we struck up a conversation and struck up a friendship. And at some point, just talking trash, I mentioned the Secret Mall apartment as within the body of artworks I've done. And if I
didn't know it.
Yeah, you hadn't heard of it.
I had not heard of it. I live in New York, and I had been to Providence, but I didn't know this story. But yeah, I mean, it was such an unusual situation because we're in this space. I'm filming another movie in a building covered in tape art. I didn't know anything about tape art. I thought that was fascinating. And Michael is watching me.
6,000 miles away.
Yeah, and he's watching me film another movie. So he's watching me in the process of making a documentary. So I guess maybe that kind of planted a little seed in your brain, but yeah.
And I had seen your movies. Yeah. So for me, and I'm going to contextualize my point of view here. When this story broke in 2007, it was international news. And we were getting calls from all over the world. And we had guided the way this story was released to the press. And in Hollywood, there was a writer's strike coming. And so we were getting, without exaggeration, dozens of calls a day sometimes from producers and directors in Hollywood. Book deals, movie deals, TV deals. And as a group of 8 artists, we decided, because this story was doing so well in the news cycle, that it was doing well as a piece of art. As a narrative, it was just fine. The last thing it needed was a movie clouding everybody's sort of ideas about it, like putting our face on it, our politics, our history. This story seemed to really captivate people, and they made it their own. Why would we screw that up? And so we said no to everybody. And this continued for the next 15 plus years of just solid no's to every director who came our way. And as time went on, their ideas got dumber and dumber and dumber. So by the time I reached Jeremy, I see someone who
Mine were the dumbest. So,
the dumbest. I was like, sold. So Jeremy, when you get a chance to see some of his other movies, has an excellent ability to, in interest, I don't know why, in artists, and making artists or eccentrics and making them accessible, trying to get underneath the hood a little bit to say, hey, how can this person who's so either obsessive about something or strange or just so driven, there has to be some reason why. And when he looked at not only the secret mall apartment stuff, but everything that was happening around that at that time. He was the first director that made the decision, oh, wait, we need to tell all these stories simultaneously.
Well, Michael, you're burying the lead,
Yes, am I? I'm just telling stories.
the content.
So, Jeremy wrapped up Lily Topples the World. You still...
I mean, when you told me this, it was, first of all, I didn't believe it. I thought you were pulling my leg. I thought I was, and then I remember like we were at a restaurant and you went off, and then I quickly ran to my phone and Googled it, and I was like, oh my God, this is real. And then I was like, there's got to be a movie here. I didn't know what Michael just was mentioning about how other filmmakers had been trying to make this project. So maybe it was also just like my naivete made it, put me in a good position to be able to pitch Michael and subsequently all the seven other artists, and then get their buy-in.
But you didn't know about the camera.
Their footage? Yeah, I mean, I did not know about their footage, so you could ask Michael, like, why they shot so much. But what they did, I mean, there was some stuff on YouTube. There was some stuff that Michael had showed me. Even, like, when we were in Athens, he was like, oh, yeah, you could find stuff, and there's stuff online, after I had realized that it was real, in fact. And then when we decided to make the movie, he sort of came and he's like, here's the hard drive. And it was 25 hours of footage of them in the secret apartment, which obviously, as you saw, became like the sort of the spine of the movie. It was all filmed with that little tiny camera. And that was worse quality than VHS. And it was 25 hours of footage, and it was I remember just like I couldn't believe it. I just really couldn't believe what I was watching. It seemed like it was fake. It was so good. The scenes of them like pushing the furniture up the stairs, and these conversations in the food court where they're debating about, building a cinder block wall, and then they build the cinder block wall. I just couldn't believe it. That little camera captured so much. So that really, at that point, convinced me that, like, oh wow, we really have an incredible movie here.
So Jeremy was the first person to ever see all of that footage. Even out of like all of my artist friends, I was the only one who had the hard drive that had everything on it. And the two criteria for do we have a movie is, one, do we have enough footage to be a framework for a movie? And two, there are 7 other artists. And I was dead set on I will not move forward. I will not do this movie unless all 7 other artists say yes. And I was like, these 4 will say yes for sure. These 3, good luck. So what I learned about documentary, I learned about documentary filmmakers is they're really good at getting people to say yes. I don't know how you did it, but you did it.
Well, when you make a documentary, and you've all seen documentaries, it's invasive. You're running around. I was running around Michael with a camera. I'm behind him. I'm filming him. I'm asking him. I'm asking everybody like really personal questions. So it is a kind of invasive experience. But I think that just going to each one of you artists, making it clear, as you saw in the movie, that I was interested in something that was more than just the prank. I love the prank. The prank's incredible. It's like the greatest prank on film, but I was also really interested and captivated by all this other stuff that you guys were doing concurrently. And that was my pitch. What you saw in the movie was my pitch to all 8 of you. And fortunately, maybe I was the first person to ever pitch that to you guys.
So these people have been sitting here for a while. Are there any questions about the film? Yes, ma'am. Right there, straight ahead.
Hi. The first time I saw the movie, and it was even better the second time, so I recommend watching it again. I was really moved by the way that your friends and co-artists described the porous nature of life and art in your life. And I was wondering how that porous nature affects and is affected by your relationships with others, maybe specifically even people that don't consider themselves to be artists. And then for you, Jeremy, how did that porous nature of art and life affect the way in which the two of you work together on this film?
That's a good question. Yeah. I was really inspired by Michael and how, this whole thing of like life as art and, there's no separation between life and art. People started telling me a lot about that, about Michael when I was interviewing all the other artists. And at that point, I sort of realized that Michael was kind of not just the ringleader of this prank, but he was also sort of the force, the center of this whole story, and that there was like sort of, the satellite of all these people sort of orbiting in his orbit in a really interesting way. A lot of it having to do with this idea that like life and art are intertwined. I had never heard that. I had never thought much about that. So it was really just something that I was very inspired by. And I think it gave me a lot of comfort in saying like, okay, well, when they do, go to New York and do that 9/11 memorial, when Michael and his team go into the hospitals, when they go to Oklahoma, it's all connected. And I think that was what led me down the understanding that the secret apartment was one thing, but it's also all connected to all this other things that they were doing. And it has to do with this bigger concept that how Michael was sort of looks at the world.
Yeah. So that approach is definitely fueled by the spaces we were able to occupy at that time, which were these big industrial mill buildings in Providence. And because the spaces were so cheap, we were able to sort of create these large live-work environments that were effectively like micro-utopias. And so it changes your behavior around other artists. Like you develop a much richer bond that can be sort of catapulted into larger artworks. So when you see these 8 artists working together, they've all had practice in those types of spaces. And we worked on the Secret Mall apartment, we worked on the September 11th project for 2 years before the Secret Mall apartment. So for 2 years, that group of artists were going down to Manhattan and just in broad daylight breaking the rules all the time. So we were in this cycle of trust and daring and arch righteousness, and all of those experiences combined were basically perfect push-ups for doing the Secret Mall apartment. And I have found that in a lot of the Q&As in the last 2 years, there are a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who watch this movie and they come up afterwards and they're like, where do you find these friends? Like, how do you meet someone like that? How do you forge these types of relationships? And so it's been sort of a mystery for some folks. And the answer is obviously complex. The barbaric answer is live with a lot of people at the same time while trying to make art and try to, in these moments of light anarchy, you can find these aesthetic experiences.
Before I forget, we're selling Secret Mall Apartment DVDs at the desk, and we're splitting the proceeds with the museum. So if anyone wants them, I think they're going to sell for $50.
Yep.
And it'll be a split with the
Blu-rays and DVDs, and we'll sign them.
Any other questions? Yes, right here.
So as a young person who does consider herself also to be an artist in some form, in some way at some times, I was wondering how you think, especially because this was before I was born, so a while ago, I was wondering how you consider now to, like, when I watch this, I think about how amazing this is and how much there's so much space and like freedom. Obviously, you didn't have a lot of freedom, but like you made space. Yeah. How do you think that's different now, pushing the envelope, doing things that would be considered like illegal in some sense? Because I feel like with social media and with the presence of cameras and security, there's so little space and freedom to explore places like this. Yeah. How do you feel that's different now?
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a really good point. There's something like nostalgic about this, because to put it in context, my arrest happens about 2 months after the first iPhone is announced. So that gives us, So that gives us a sense of where we are in the technological timeline. So maybe another way to sort of address some of this question is to ask, could this happen today? Like if my home got knocked down, I'm like, okay, folks, let's make this space in the mall. I don't know if we could pull it off. And I think that's because, ironically, it wouldn't be the cops that would get us or security officers, it'd be somebody in this room. So, because we have sort of all softly agreed to participate in a self-surveillance state where we're documenting each other all the time and posting it all the time, and I really think it would be somebody in the parking lot who would see those fools with cinder blocks, take a picture, send it, and start to leave a sort of popcorn trail of our activities. And something that's the word secret mall apartment, the secret part is interesting because we kept it a secret for so long. How? Partly because we didn't have a device on us that was connected to anything else. And so there was no habit at all of sharing or clout chasing or cloud-based things. And it really changes the dynamic about being very present. And the idea of recording yourself in video at that time, very novel. So I could walk through malls like this and no one would think twice about the idea I was recording video of myself. And now that is the norm. So it completely changes how we relate to ourselves and everybody around us.
I have a question. How many of you saw this for the first time tonight? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Great, crazy. Any other questions? Where are you?
I'm thinking about the politics of urban development and housing, and for a city like New Bedford that is confronted, and the first shots of the developers tearing down the mills, and we're in a housing crisis, and how you're asking a political question in the very beginning of this movie, and to what extent did you realize that, and how important is that political question for you?
Well, I mean, I'll first start, you explain your motivation, but like, it was definitely, we all felt it from when we were making the movie that was a really core part of the story, that once we kind of made that connection to what was happening in the neighborhoods, what was happening in Providence, all the things that were going on in downtown, that it somehow it connected to this. And I think that it definitely resonates with a lot of viewers, and we've shown this movie, across the country and in other countries as well. And I think everybody who watches it, they may not have a mall, they may not live life as an artist, but they could connect to this notion of gentrification happening, particularly, around them coming towards their homes and what that means, and how people feel powerless, and how people feel that there's really nothing you can do. And I think that one of the reasons that I think this story speaks to a lot of people is that they do feel sort of powerless, and as kooky as their response is, it is something that people in the back of their minds, they sort of feel about with gentrification creeping in. But yeah,
The twisted irony in all this is that as we sit here in 2026, malls all over the country are being repurposed to be multi-purposed. So, there are apartments being built in malls everywhere. So, in a sense, we're way ahead of our time.
And the movie indicates that it shows one moment of me at a city hall meeting. I did that for 2 years. City hall meetings, backdoor meetings with the developers, and I was in on the development process. I was in most of the meetings about Eagle Square. So boring for cinema. But that's protest work. That's me getting into the doors where the decisions are being made. So myself in my early 30s was interested in saving the buildings mostly for historic purposes. I was like, they can't knock down these beautiful mill buildings. In my 50s, I realized I needed to be part of the conversation about what happens inside those buildings afterwards. And that's something I didn't know at the time. So by saving those buildings, we saved every building in Eagle Square except for the one I lived in. Sad. They knocked our building down to make a parking lot for the buildings we saved. cruel. And then we found out that they never had any plan to turn the buildings we saved into any, they had no plan. So they turned them into condos, and those condos became the most profitable part of their project. So we handed them the win. And then because those condos were so good, my entire neighborhood now is just mill condos. So I'm being gentrified. I'm still in the same neighborhood, and we're being slowly squeezed out again from the hard work we did 20 years ago. Boo. So the lesson is, if you have an opportunity to be a voice for what happens inside structures that you save, you have to continue the work, and saving the mill building by itself is not the end product.
By the way, Emily is here as well. Emily, stand up.
That's Michael's girlfriend.
Michael's girlfriend. Emily, how much is in Michael's bank account now?
Because of this movie, he stopped sending me these texts. So I actually, I don't know at the moment how much is in Michael's bank account. And
Everyone
I
wants
don't
to know.
I don't want to know. Yeah.
I think there's a great question from Kevin Kalunian or Maureen Boyle up there.
Hold on, Kevin.
Kevin,
Yeah.
there's a microphone coming to you.
Okay, yeah, those were very sophisticated questions. I have something very simplistic for
Yes.
Michael, but also if you guys wouldn't mind commenting too. This film it's like a Cracker Jack box. There's a surprise inside. So it's a nice feeling to get that. But also what was more rewarding and cathartic? Making the film, financial considerations aside, what was more rewarding? Making the film or making the apartment?
Oh, gosh.
That's a great question. That is a great
You might get two
question.
different answers. Okay. So, obviously, the movie highlights a very frantic period of my life. Those 5 years I will forever cherish because I had the incredible opportunity to work with these 7 other artists who were so dedicated to each other for such that to have those people for such a long time, like 5 years is a long time to have 7 collaborators where no one's making any money. So I'm forever grateful for the film, capturing that time period and being able to share it with other people. And for me, as an art educator, this film has been a mental bonanza. I was like, so awesome that so many people are seeing these, such a buffet of ideas about art, and the idea that art can play a role in your life in a very sort of powerful way or be used for art and healing. And if that message is getting out to millions and millions and millions of people, I'm moved deeply by that. But, yeah.
Yeah, I love the Cracker Jack comment because I think that part of our approach was that viewers would go into the movie and they would sort of go in on the pitch, on the premise. They lived in a mall for 4 years, and then what we were so excited about was this sort of journey of the movie that as it goes, it's kind of constantly spinning in these directions that you kind of they're constantly surprised. You're like, there's a scene all of a sudden about 9/11. How did that happen? So that was always part of the intention as well, that it was just this kind of Trojan horse movie that would always take you in these different directions.
I got a call from Ken Burns, who watched the movie, and I had sent it to him, and he said, the heist is great, but the art was better. And that, to me, sort of encapsulated what so many people around the country really felt about this, because they went in for the prank, and they had no idea they were going to be moved by the art so much.
I have to share a number. This number has been melting my mind for the last couple of weeks. The Hollywood Reporter released the numbers for February. And so they put Secret Mall Apartment versus all movies on all streaming platforms in February came in at number 6. And they gave, okay, wait. It gets weird, it gets crazier. They gave the numbers for how much it was viewed, and it was like, how many millions of minutes? We're like, wait, how many years is that? 548 years in February. So, go outside, America. But yeah.
And the blizzard helped.
Yeah, the blizzard helped. Yeah, it came out. Yeah.
Other questions? Oh, right there, straight ahead. Good-looking gentleman in the sweatshirt.
Thank you. First of all, amazing story, amazing, art project with this Secret Mall apartment. I really like that idea of art is life, life is art. And I think that between the both of you, Jeremy telling documentary stories, that's real life, authentic storytelling, and Michael with all of your projects, the tunnel, all these kind of like experiential things. I'm curious with the rise in technology and AI and everything, right? I feel like a lot of people kind of think I'm crazy because I'm not as worried as they think I should be about it. But I feel like what you guys do really gets at the essence of art and creation and creativity. I'm curious to like what your thoughts are on that. If if you're worried about it, or if you're just gonna kind of continue chugging on doing what you do, or what.
I could start this one. So, I mean, I'm not, I'm only interested in making documentaries. It's all I do. I've made, 6 features. I just finished another one since Secret Mall Apartment. I'm starting a new one now. I'm going to New Zealand on Saturday for another one. So it's all I do, and it's all I'm interested in. And I think the reason why I'm interested in is very much like the antithesis of AI, is just that I'm fascinated by people and fascinated by how incredible people are. And so I always think that is something that's going to interest me and interest people that want that in their entertainment and in the things that they consume. So I'm not worried about it myself.
Yeah, I think the part of the thrill of this movie, why it's really fun in like 2026, is because it's so analog. Yeah. It's just so barbaric. Every part of it, just like So. Myself personally, I like to run the full spectrum when I think about AI, from total paranoia to like, this is one of the most incredible tools I've ever seen. I love being alive right now. So I can embrace all sides of the AI argument. I'm thrilled by it. Like really like deeply, viscerally thrilled by the progression of AI and the chaos of it all. And the fact that collectively we have no idea where it's gonna go or what it's gonna do is like pretty exciting. So
it's learning tape art.
Yeah, so we're all a part of it. All I can do is in my daily life continue to just be a cave person who presses tape onto walls, and teaching people how to connect with each other in sort of these communal sort of social art experiences, and that brings me peace.
There was a question here.
From the baby. This was one of the first movies that she watched at home, and this is also her
Incredible.
first time in a theater, so pretty cool. I guess my question is more, being arrested, do you think that stifled your creativity and goals and reaching artistically? Or has it had no effect whatsoever and you want to be bolder and crazier? Or like how did it affect you, I guess?
And yeah, this is parenting advice.
And your creativity. Yeah. I'll take notes.
Yeah, the arrest had no effect on me psychologically at all. Partly because I'll share some of the arrest experience, and then that will inform, you'll be like, oh, okay, you're fine. The security, obviously they caught me. They brought me to the security office. The head of security's job is to yell. He did a very good job. The second in command, after the yelling was done, brought me into his office, sat me down. He's like, 4 years, incredible. I was like, wait, is this some like light respect happening? What's that? And I asked him, I was like, well, how long before the police come? He's like, yeah, like 30 minutes. I was like, do you want a tour of all your security problems on this half of the mall? I'll give it to you. So I did a half-hour free consulting for the mall, and I brought them through. I was like, that door never closes, that alarm never goes off. The police came, handcuffed, but in the back of a cop car. There's this little window that they pull aside. He's like, good job in there. Oh, what is this? By the time I get to the police station, everybody knows about it, and I find out that I piece together that the police and the mall security have been beefing with each other. So they're excited. They're thrilled that the mall's been humiliated. So It took about a half hour to fingerprint me because they kept asking questions. I'd like roll a finger and they'd ask a question. It's like 5 minutes later, roll another finger. I was handcuffed to a wall for 3 hours, which is fine, in a room where detectives came in over and over and over again to ask me questions. They're trying to like piece it together. And I decide I'm going to tell them 100% of the truth. Even if it hurts me, I'm going to tell them the truth. And detectives never have that experience where they're like, wow, this guy's just a fountain of truth. So during those conversations, 2 hours in, they came in, they're like, hey, you had your PlayStation stolen and all your personal effects. Like, why didn't you report that? So things are going okay. They hold you overnight so you can see a judge in the morning. Okay. So the next morning, you get in a van, you go to the courthouse. I'm handcuffed to another guy named Michael. They did not like him. And the lawyer for the mall makes a critical mistake. He decides that the best way to try to burn me or try to show that I'm the one who's nuts is to describe the apartment in all of its details. You got the 4-piece sectional couch, entertainment section, china with matching china, nicely folded clothes. And the more he described the apartment, the more that judge was like, and he finally said, I don't know what this is, but it's not like super illegal. I'm going to give you misdemeanor trespassing. $60 fine. And you have to talk to a lady every once in a while for 6 months. And that was it. I left the legal system. And part of this is Providence culture. So had this happened in New York or Chicago, I think I would have been scorched. But in Providence, they could see through it. They could see that this wasn't a prank. This was something bigger. They didn't know what it was, but it wasn't something worth like bringing the hammer down.
So while this was going on, I was made aware of it as the spokesperson for the REIT, the Real Estate Investment Trust, GGP in Chicago that owned it. And so, as I said, I had no idea that this apartment existed until he got
and to clarify that,
pinched.
General Growth Properties owns that mall and 250 malls nationally.
But, you know,
Everybody know your cameo in the film?
I don't know.
There's in that media montage at the end.
So-
there's a spokesperson for the mall, and it's Dante.
So, as you know, people wanted to, the lawyer wanted to talk about all the things that were in there. And I was appealing to the REIT and to the Providence Place Mall management, let's just forget it. Let's just like sort of laugh it off. And they didn't want to hear any of that. So I went on and talked about it just being a place with some stuff in it. And that's the line that was used everywhere. And GGP didn't find that funny at all. But nevertheless, as this is going on, they really wanted to bring the hammer down on them, and what they did was...
So they sicked 2 lawyers on me, and they hounded me for months. Okay, this is a question for y'all. All right. At one point, I was brought into a lawyer's meeting, and the lady brings me out in the hallway. She's a lawyer, and she looks at me, and she goes, "You are our worst-case scenario, because you're worth nothing." I was like, ouch. I'm right here. She's like, on paper, you have nothing. You own no property, you have no money, you have no savings. So what are they trying to take from me? There's something I have that they want legally. What's the thing they want? What can they take from me besides my dignity? What's that? I like that. Tape, reputation, time. Yep, they're getting all of that. What else? What
Liberty.
else? What is the property that I have that they... So I've created something.
The creative
The story.
liberty.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. They want the intellectual property. They've made the legal jump in their mind. They're like, wait, he created intellectual property, a story, copyrights, narratives, and videos on our property during an act of trespass. Therefore, maybe we have a legal route to take it. I was like, wait a second, are you telling me that if you go to the mall and you don't buy anything and you just hang out in the food court and you're writing poems, that they have the right to those poems? Maybe it's the same sort of idea. Because remember, malls are private property. They have very clear rules. Next time you go into the mall, find the rules. And the rules are like, you cannot be here unless you are shopping. You can't take photographs. You can't take videos. And if you break any of those rules, they have every right to escort you out. They just choose to enforce when they want to enforce. So that was it. I spent 2 months fighting them on the ideas about copyright and intellectual property. Unbeknownst to them, that is my hobby. I love copyright law, love it so much. So it was thrilling. And I finally got a lawyer from New York City who works for free for artists who are in trouble. And once the big dog stepped into the arena, they just backed off.
I have a serious question to Jeremy and Michael. Is that the youngest patron we've had at a live event?
Yes.
There wasn't somebody didn't give birth in one of the screenings? No. I think this
I
one
know
wins.
time is running short. Are there any other questions? Right there.
As we're bringing the mic over, had you given up the copyright, there'd be no documentary.
That is true. No, I was willing to die on that hill. Like, there's no way you're going to take a copyright from me. Never.
Can you put it up closer?
Hello, yes. One burning question, and that is, did you have to pay for parking in the mall?
Wait, this is the thing, is all of this is unfolding right next to where I used to live and where my studio is. So we're just walking. Parking was exceedingly cheap. And whenever we went to the mall, I would just skateboard there. So no.
Any other questions? Straight ahead.
Sure.
The tunnel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've yet to find a really, I'm going to do it as concisely as I can. Jeremy intentionally left the tunnel part more atmospheric or mysterious because it's a huge detour to go down about the intentions of that space. It's an entirely different narrative. So Jeremy had to be selective of what artworks to put in that would feed the story but not distract from it. The tunnel being one of them. So the tunnel, in brief, was built in 1999. It was a moment in my life where my art collaborators and I, at that time, parted ways. They went back to New Zealand. The love of my life parted ways. She went back to Greece. I'm sending everyone out of the country. We're about to lose. Fort Thunder was in trouble. They stopped making my tape. I mean, if country song rules, dog dead, car blows up. Like, this is a very, very intense time in my life, and I make the decision to leave my entire life up to that point in the tunnel. And so in that tunnel, in those hanging wooden boxes, was every object I owned in my entire life up to my 30th birthday. So that means you go back to your houses and look at every single thing you have in your house, every article of clothing, every object you've ever collected, document it, put it in a plastic bag, and put it in a tunnel. All the sculpture pieces are self-portraits, primarily, of myself, cast from my own body. All the other characters are friends and influences. And so it was just an act of self-portraiture to move on. I showed it officially to about 13 people, put a lock and chain on it, and walked. And then the fine people of Providence figured out how to get into that space, to this the manhole cover for it is between operational train tracks. And people would still, I've heard numbers easily over 10,000 people took that journey. And Jeremy found people who had seen it, which is incredible detective work on your part.
We recently saw a news segment about it that we didn't know even existed and didn't have for the film, but where there was a Providence news segment about people talking about it. It was fascinating.
It was the moment it was discovered by someone who went down, looked in, and was like, those are dead bodies. And they called the cops. And so it was the police, fire trucks, and Fox News. It's a potent combination. And so we just saw this news clip for the first time.
Okay, any last questions?
I have one.
Right here, Beatrice.
Well, I have a statement and then a question.
Yeah.
You're brilliant. I love your work. Amazing, really.
No.
Seriously. Yeah. Secondly, the museum is fully alarmed.
I also saw cameras when I walked in, Mike.
But,
Don't forget, there are DVDs out there.
I wondered what's next for you and how do I sign up to be a part of it?
Yeah. So we still a working artist, still making a lot of the same type of stuff. So I spend my days primarily anchored by the tape art journey. This Friday, I go to the Art Museum in Brattleboro, Vermont, and for 9 days straight, we're gonna run a performance piece called Tape Art Megacorp, where when you come into the space, you have to watch an introductory video, and then you're hired on the spot, and then you have to do tape art jobs for an hour. This will go on for 9 days in a row in an abandoned administrative building. So it's gonna be this like outrageous piece of artwork. We are using social media now. So Instagram.com/tapeart. For the love of God, please follow us. We need the numbers.
And there's some great T-shirts there.
Yeah, it's good.
And
yes.
by the way, the Whaling Museum should hire them.
No, sure. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you, everybody. So
Whale themed, right? Yeah.
yeah, and then in the same cycle, Tape Art pays for our dance projects, our sculpture projects, and our video projects. So we're still in the same cycle.
Well, we have another question.
Well, it's not really a question. Speaking of the Whaling Museum hiring you, one of your maybe colleagues, are you still at RISD?
No. When this story broke, they threw me under every bus.
Okay.
They're like, send more buses.
Well, Amy Bartlett-Wright, muralist, she's done a lot of work around New Bedford.
Oh, no,
Are you
I haven't
familiar?
met them. No.
You don't know? Okay. I thought maybe you, if you were at RISD, you'd know her. So.
Yeah, we can talk in the lobby. You can point me in their direction.
I think we have time for one last question.
One more question? Right here? Yep, right there.
I'm curious to know what some of the other 7 artists or 6 artists are doing now.
Yeah. So the other artists, this is funny, when we were doing, when Jeremy gave us rough cuts of the movie to sort of show and test with audiences, we were showing them to super conservative audiences down in the South, and one of the consensus things is like they just wanted to know about the other artists. They wanted like spin-off movies, spin-off TV series, like what's Greta doing? All 7 artists are still involved in the arts. So they're still making art or teaching art, which is a pretty remarkable run that all these folks stay dedicated to the mission. James is in the upper echelons. He's our fine artist.
James was the one with the glasses.
With the glasses.
He's in a studio. There's like a hamster painting behind him.
Very serious, very astute. Adriana is a full-time teacher
in New York. Yeah,
in New York City. Greta's an animator. Like I could just keep going on and on and on, but they're all in the arts and still working with a lot of. The one that was the wild hit in the movies is Emily in the movie. She's this very sort of like discreet person who was in this whole experience, and she never spoke a word about it. So in Providence, she's worked with hundreds of teenagers doing community art, and now she's a legend because nobody knew that she was involved in anything that cool. And on that note, I got to experience 2 of those artists bring their parents to see Secret Mall Apartment in the movies, and parents had never heard of it.
They'd never, no idea.
No idea. They're like, do you want to go see this movie?
Yes.
So they'd bring them in. So I got to experience parents see their children go through all this for the first time.
Andrew was one,
did
and
that,
Greta,
Greta
no
did it,
idea.
Good secret keepers. Yeah.
So I just was curious if you could sort of speak to the first week where I've heard it being referred to as a prank, and yet I'm curious to know how you felt when the idea sort of morphed into this, like, at first we're just like a night or 2, and then how long can we get away, and is it how long can we get away with this, or is it a prank, or is it really like you're sort of
Right, so in the movie, it refers to the idea of like a week in the mall. So the seed of this idea about the mall being a place where they were replacing our homes, that they had the most square footage, entered into the vocabulary shortly after the mall opened in 1999. So many years later, we decide, after being exhausted from fighting the local government, trying to save our building, we're going to do a week in the mall. This is more prank-oriented. This is more like a survival thing. Who's going to make it? We were only there for a couple of days, because once we found that space, we're like, oh, there is a bigger calling here. We sort of felt all that that anxiety and pressure and lessons from the developers. And the lessons from the developers, what we heard in every single meeting was their righteousness. They're like, if a space is underdeveloped, you have a God-given responsibility to develop it. And when we saw that opening happen, we're like, that's it, we're in. We're the developers now. And it was a way of just sort of coming to peace with all that time we had spent. And it was at that point that it became a private exercise. It was never meant to be forward-facing. All the footage that we shot for this was never meant to be seen by anybody. We shot that for our own in-house usage. And so the first couple times I saw this movie, premiered at South by Southwest, exactly 2 years ago, it caught me off guard. It was a little like, it's a great movie, but it was jarring. I was like a little bummed out. It was a little like, oh. It was only in the Q&As that I started to loosen up a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, this movie outside of myself is going to have positive impact. And that's sort of what's allowed me to sort of be at peace with the
One thing
movie.
I was just going to add to your question was, yeah, I mean, I always felt, and I think everybody that was working on it felt that the apartment was always shape-shifting. It is a prank. It is an art project. It is a protest. It is a stage. It's silly. It's stupid. It's profound. It's all those things. And I think that's what was something that we really felt and wanted to capture in the movie as well.
One of the greatest things that happened during this, before it hit Netflix, before its success on Netflix, we did a theatrical release. So we did, how many cities?
300.
And do you know where we premiered the film? Providence Place Mall.
Thank you, Jeremy, Michael, and Dante. This was incredible.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And yeah, we have DVDs and Blu-rays if you're interested. We'll sign them.